In case you never heard of Arknights Endfield, it's a brand new gacha game set in the Arknights Universe, but unlike the original one, this isn't a tower defense game with a lot of chibi units on the board. And honestly speaking, simply calling Arknights Endfield a gacha game is such an understatement. This one is more like an open-world, base-building, action RPG, factory gacha game. And I know it sounds overly complicated, but there's simply no better way to explain how it works. I got access to the closed beta, but sadly I didn't have a lot of time to play the game, and that's why I'm only releasing this video today. I just finished the last survey and pretty much played a bit of everything, so it's time for me to do a proper review of Arknights Endfield. I'll do my best to be as detailed as I can on my opinions, and also avoid spoilers around the story, so in case you want to experience the story yourself, don't worry, I won't spoil anything. From the moment you start the game, you get to experience the prologue, and trust me, it's such a good experience. It sets up the whole story for you, and you also get to experience some of the game graphics and mechanics you will unlock as you progress in the game. Speaking of graphics, while we don't have a lot of graphical settings on the closed beta, which I'm pretty sure there will be better options and optimization on the official release, the graphic quality is actually really good. I do find some 3D models a little bit stiff on cutscenes, but outside of it, every single operator, the environment and everything, it just feels really nice. It helps you immerse yourself in the story since you can see the impact of your actions in the game. As for the main story, it's nothing super amazing or unique, but from what I know from Arknights, I'm pretty sure we'll get some really good content later in the game. The game starts really well, as I said, and I really like the prologue and how it set up the world for you. But as soon as the prologue ends and you start the actual story, I feel like the pacing and delivery is not that good. I find it too slow, and the delivery is lacking a bit, but at least it's not a huge info dump right at the beginning, and in case you don't care for the story, you can just skip and get a quick overview of what the cutscene you're skipping talks about. The pacing gets better after some time, but the first two maps you explore are not that great, but help you understand a bit of the world and what exactly is going on. And after you reach the third map, things get way more interesting, and from there on, it's a really great ride. The open world exploration hits different on Endfield. Unlike other games which pretty much are just exploring because you want to complete 100% exploration on your world map, Endfield wants you to explore the map so you can find resources and start expanding your factory in a way you can automate the extraction of these resources for your never-ending production needs. Sometimes you also need to extend your power lines so you can cover some areas to solve puzzles, and you can also place combat facilities such as gun towers to help you in some combat areas. Of course, there's still plenty of materials and collectibles you can gather around the map and get rewards from doing so. There's also some cool zip lines which you can place to help you walk around the map. Cool stuff, but could use some quality of life improvement. Right now, you still need to power zip lines using power pylons, so you need two different facilities just to power a zip line. Sometimes you also enter combat, and you can't place facilities while in combat. So in case you end up going too far from the relay tower, your connection will drop and you need to walk back to the relay tower just to restart the power line. So for exploration, I think it's different in a good way, but there's some room for improvement here. I feel they did a really great job on translating the factory gameplay to a gacha game, which could be a kind of a turn-off for a lot of players. The gameplay is heavily connected to the factory, which means you need to learn and play around production lines in order to get materials that will craft gears for your units. If you're here only looking for exploration and combat, then maybe this could be a bit of a problem for you. And one thing I really hope they can add to the game to remove some of this entry barrier is the blueprint system. It allows you to share and just copy-paste production line designed by other players, and this is something that definitely helped me on the first factory game I've played. If they don't add it, well, the game has a lot of simulations and they work pretty well to explain how things works. So if you're a complete beginner to factory games, these simulations can prove quite good to explain facilities and give you a better idea of what you need to do in order to grow your factory. One really cool feature is that you can easily check the whole production chain of an item by looking at the database. This shows you all the materials and facilities you need in order to craft the desired product. Of course, the factory gameplay is not only meant for your gear production. There's healing items, other crafting materials, and outposts which you will unlock as you progress in the main story. And they request some products that require you to set up a production line in order to fulfill their orders. This in turn improves the outpost and also rewards you with tokens you can exchange for a lot of different things. Improving outposts also gives you the option to increase the area status of some maps, which increases the resource available but also increases the enemy levels. So improving outposts is really important for you. Also, once you get access to the second region of the game, you start using pipes to transport liquids around the map and feed into facilities, adding another layer of complexity to the game. I really like how they slowly add content in a way you don't feel overwhelmed by the amount of facilities, but despite liking the whole factory gameplay a lot, I think there's plenty of things to improve here. For example, place facilities and transport belts on the 3-dimensional view isn't that great. I found it way easier to just use a top-down view, but you can use it outside of your main factory area. Moving the whole production chain is impossible, and this is quite sad during the early game, because your factory area keeps growing and you can't reposition some of the production chain you made unless you do it facility by facility. Not to mention that as you unlock new facilities and upgrades, chances are you'll end up with a really complex setup if you don't know what is useful later in the game and what is not. Besides the factory gameplay, there's also a bit of base management where you can slot operators to work and produce items for you. For now, we don't have a lot of rooms, but in the future, they could expand it further, and even some of the materials you need to get on the map can be cultivated here. Overall, this side of the core gameplay is quite good, and I really hope they can tweak things a little bit just to make it even more enjoyable. Now, the game is not only factory gameplay, and there's plenty of combat around the world. The foundation is really good because there's still the classic strategy factor that Arknights always had. You need to make proper team compositions where you can activate and benefit from skill combos, and each one has some specific trigger before activating. You can make team compositions around physical ailments, for example, another one based on R's reactions, and another one based on final hits. These skill combos are actually amazing to see and use, and playing around them is really satisfying. Boss fights starts really basic, but as you progress on the main story, bosses will get some really unique mechanics that make the combat a good experience. All of your operators share the same skill point pool, so you need to think before spending them, in case you need to trigger some arts reaction or just interrupt the enemy. They also stay on the field with you, so the combat looks really dynamic, but I'll be real, I can't say that I like the combat on Endfield. Some players say the combat feels too slow, but I disagree. That's far from the issue, and once you understand the team composition and how to trigger combo skills, everything feels really good. Dodge is probably the #1 issue here. Visual feedback is really bad, and sometimes you end up covering the enemy under your skill effects to the point where you can't even see the dodge window. Doing a perfect dodge is not rewarding, and you don't even get iframes or stagger the enemy after using a dodge attack. And when fighting multiple enemies, this can be a huge problem, to the point where you end up in a situation where pretty much you just need to keep dodging. Getting to the final hit is also quite demanding and a really bad experience. The last hit of your basic attack string gives increased skill points and stagger build-up, but it's almost impossible for you to hit the last hit on some units. Of course, this is part of the strategy I mentioned, because some units will have a faster basic attack animation, others will be ranged, so you can use this to your advantage. But sometimes you just need to dodge an attack, and then the moment you dodge, you just reset your whole string. So it feels really sad trying to push for the last hit, since you can easily get punished for doing so. And I'm pretty sure they know about all of these issues, because on the surveys they have some really detailed answers on some of these topics. So honestly speaking, for a game that shoves down a lot of combat in the main story and wants you to play it, since daily farming and weekly content is all combat stuff, they need to improve the combat experience. Just polish some things, because the foundation is amazing, and I really hope they don't change anything beside this visual feedback and how clunky and unrewarding some moves feels. For character progression, if you use it to farm relics, equipment, or whatever in daily runs, and you just get frustrated because you can't get the right main stat on the right stat, well, relax a bit. Weapons come from the Gacha System, which I'll be explaining later, and equipment comes from the factory gameplay, as I mentioned before. Equipment has different tiers, and each one comes from a specific tier of mineral on the map, which means you do need to keep improving your factory in order to process different minerals and get access to new tiers of equipment. Weapons has a bit of RNG system, which comes in the form of an essence. This essence provides buffs for specific traits, and each weapon has fixed traits. So basically you need to roll down and get lucky in order to find a perfect essence, but you don't need to spend stamina farming those things. You can get them from exploration and some area events, so it doesn't feel that frustrating when compared to spending your stamina just to get bad stuff that will go straight to the trash. For endgame activities, there's some weekly stuff, which is a bit of platform exploration plus combat. The gameplay is quite fun because you get to experience some exploration in between the combat rooms, and you also get some buffs along the way to help you clear the combat stuff. But outside of it, there's not too much besides the daily login and gathering stuff, spending stamina, and maybe improving your factory, which could be quite sad. Because once you get a factory running and don't need to worry anymore, the gameplay loop will be just logging in, spending stamina, maybe gathering some stuff on the open world, and that's it. This could be a problem for replayability on the long run, and I hope you can get some season events that always forces you to take care of some other stuff. For example, we could have some sort of limited time event that adds a specific recipe to the factory, and you can use it to trade for rewards. Or maybe season events on the weekly content, so you can always experience something different every few weeks. Of course, there's plenty of possibilities, and maximizing your factory output can be a huge task already. For characters, I really love every single one of them, and this is something I like since the first Arknights. That's one of the reasons why I still collect Arknights and Androids even though I don't play Arknights anymore. Some of them are alternative versions of characters from the original game, so if you ever played Arknights, then you might recognize some of these units. They look amazing to me, and the characters' expressions on the UI are really good. They interact with you during the gameplay, giving you tips and random talk after combat that showcases even more of the character personality. You can also interact with them on your ship and gift them so you can raise trust levels, and this unlocks some extra attributes for you. Each one also has different set of traits that you can use to manage outposts and work on different facilities on your main ship. Now, finally, for the gacha part of the game. No idea why some people said back in the first days that the gacha is greedy and they need to change it, when you can easily get 2 or more 6-star units in 120 pulls in case you don't get the rate up unit. Let me explain a little bit. Endfield has a hard pity of 80 pulls to get a 6-star unit, and this carries over different banners. Once you hit a 6-star, you have the 50% chance to get the rate up unit and a 50% chance to get any other 6-star unit. Unlike most other gacha games, losing a 50-50 on Endfield won't guarantee that your next 6-star will be a rate-up character. But they also guarantee that you get the rate-up character in 120 pulls for a single time. Quick note that this 120 pull guarantee is reset on every banner, which means you can't spend like 119 pulls and decide to save it for the next unit. No, just don't, okay? Just do another pull and get the unit that you're pulling for. This basically means that going horizontal on Endfield is way better. Grab a single copy of the rate up unit and that's it. Save your pulls for the next banner because spending here won't guarantee dupes for the unit that you want. And trust me, there's not a huge reason for you to try to go all the way to the maximum potential. This is not the kind of game where you get maximum dupes and just wipes everything on the screen. Oh, and did you notice that I didn't use the word limited unit? Yep. That's because we don't get limited units that often on Arknights. Once the rate up ends, they are added in the 6-star pool, so you can get extra dupes from previous units when losing the 50 on pretty much any unit. Now, one thing that I don't know exactly if I like it or not is the weapon banner. As long as you keep spending pulls and doing weeklies, you can get currency to buy weapons or pull the weapon banner. And the drop rate for a 6-star on the weapon gacha is actually quite nice. Now, what I don't like here is that most of your currency to spend on the weapon store is coming from gacha pools. And sometimes you're just going to get a banner with a character you don't like and you want to skip, but if you're looking for the weapon, for example, because some other unit can use it, you find yourself in a weird situation. But I like how you get the option to buy some weapons straight up from the store or try your luck with some gacha pools. The issue here is if you're looking for a feature weapon that is not the rate up weapon. Because you can get any of these, and the only guarantee you have is to get the rate-up weapon in at least 80 pulls. So sometimes you're going to stick with a 5-star weapon on units because you don't want to risk and play with RNG. As for everything else, such as music, cutscenes, and environment, I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but the whole atmosphere of the game is really well made. Nothing too epic or remarkable in my opinion, but everything is really fitting to the world setting. Maps are really beautiful, and as you explore different maps and regions, you get to see a lot of different stuff reflected on the characters' designs, buildings, and even puzzles. Overall, I'm looking forward to the full release of the game, and I'm happy to be part of this closed beta. Endfield is definitely trying to do a lot of things at the same time, and I feel they did a really great job on this. The game feels really amazing and even complete already. I just hope they take some time to improve some of the current game systems, because I'm pretty sure a lot of players gave feedback when submitting the survey. I have a feeling this is going to be such a niche game, and I'm all in for it. If you like factory games or just want to play something different from the usual open world gacha games we have right now, Endfield is going to be a good experience for you. But if you have hopes for a high-paced combat and don't want to rely on the factory gameplay, I don't think this game is going to work for you. In gacha aspect, Arknights has always been really good for free-to-play players, so unless they take a really different approach on Endfield, I don't think you find yourself in a situation where you need to spend money on the game. For those watching my videos for the first time, I mostly cover Zone Zero here on the channel. But I do plan to do some streams and also make some extra videos on Arknights Endfield once the game releases, so feel free to subscribe or also join my Discord server. Also, leave a comment down below with your thoughts about the game, whether you played the closed beta or not. Anyway, that's enough talking. Hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in my next video. See ya.